Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the program. I'm Christiane Amanpour. Welcome back to the program and continuing our conversation about the Catholic Church's new leader. As we've said, he's a pope of many firsts. The first to choose the name Francis, and the first from the Americas, and also the first Jesuit ever to lead the Vatican. Here with me now is Father Joseph McShane. He's also a Jesuit, and he's the president of Fordham University here in New York. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
As a Jesuit, how do you feel today?
Well, stunned, because St. Ignatius never intended for Jesuits to have positions of power, authority, or influence in the Church. So we were always told from the day we entered, there will never be a Jesuit pope, and now we have one. We're all stunned.
So were you for a moment wondering whether he had chosen Francis Xavier?
Every Jesuit in the world, I think, had that same hope. As well
because he was the first great Jesuit missionary.
Right, and it was actually, the election was the day after the conclusion of the Novena of Grace, which celebrates the canonizations of St. Ignatius and St. Francis Xavier. But alas, it was not. It was Francis of Assisi.
And what does it mean to you, then, that he's chosen that name? We've spoken ad nauseum, if you like, about humility and service and the poor and the downtrodden and the destitute. But what about the reform that Francis of Assisi is associated with? Rebuild my church in ruins. Cardinal McCarrick just told me reform.
Right. I think all of those play into his... no one knows exactly why he chose the name, but I suspect that all of the reasons that you alluded to played into it. He is clearly a man who embraces poverty, and embraces poverty, I think, in a fairly radical way in his own lifestyle. He also embraces the poor. So that's a major part of his identity. As for reform, I think, yes, in his service as the Archbishop of Buenos Aires and in the work that he did with the bishops throughout South America, I think it was clear that he is a man who is concerned about reform. He reformed his own curia in Buenos Aires, streamlined administrative offices. So I think love of poverty, devotion to the poor, reform of the Church.
And let me ask you about the impact in the Americas, not just in Latin America, but also here in the United States, where there's such a burgeoning Latino population. Let me put in our magic table on our wall a graphic. Basically, it's about Catholic identity here in the United States. It has been declining,
right,
from 46% in '74 to 27% in 2012. Not great. It's not a great trend. Do you think that this Pope, just by his presence and his nationality, can energize that?
Well, I think when you look at these numbers, you have to add another set, and that is you have to look at the percentage of American Catholics who come from a Latin background. And that percentage has really exploded in the last 25, 30 years. Now, I think in the Latin American population of the United States, his election is an electrifying moment. And an energizing moment. So I think there will be a great surge of interest in him, devotion to him, and through the devotion to him, devotion to the Church and interest in the Church.
And outside the Latino population, as an American priest yourself, and you see this crisis, I suppose, this secularization.
Right.
Obviously, it's growing massively in Asia and Africa. But what do you think this moment might mean for bringing people back to the Catholic Church here, or having new members?
Well, I think that because he is from the Americas, there will be, an interest, even a curiosity in him for that. I think there will be, beyond that, a fascination with him as a religious figure. And, we saw yesterday, today, and we've been reflecting in my community upon his personality. There are things I think that people are going to find arrestingly attractive about him. Yesterday, when he came out and looked at first stunned, then he was very warm and grandfatherly. But the really stunning moment was when he asked the people to pray for him and bless him before he blessed them. I think he won over a lot of people and raised a few eyebrows.
It was remarkable, actually, because he just said the word and the entire square fell silent.
Absolutely. And then at the end, when he said goodbye, he told them to go home and get a good night's sleep. It was very reminiscent of what's referred to as the moonlight meditation of John the 23rd. On the night of the opening of the Second Vatican Council, people streamed into the square for a torchlight procession, and he appeared at his window and spoke to them as a father, and then at the end said, go home.
Do the reforms of the Second Vatican Council still have life? Is that something that might be opened up again under a new pope?
Oh, I think so. I think that Pope Francis is a man who takes the council seriously. If you look at the way in which he's lived his life as a bishop and archbishop, it seems to me very clear that he takes the pastoral constitution on the church in the modern world very much to heart, Gaudium et Spes, which calls upon the church to be an attentive, loving, listening church that will be in dialogue and learn from the world what the meaning of the gospel is right now.
What does he have to do on some of these terrible challenges and crises and scandals, frankly crimes that have rocked the church over the last decades? Look, here in the United States, 34% of American Catholics say the sex abuse scandal is the biggest problem. What does Pope Francis have to do, day one, out of the box, to take a stand on that?
Well, I think he would be wise if he listened to the American bishops, especially the cardinals who are in Rome, and among them our own Cardinal Dolan here and Cardinal George in Chicago, who said in the lead-up days to the conclave that the new pope must make it very clear that there is zero tolerance throughout the Church Universal for behavior of this kind. And even more importantly, has to say that whenever such an act, such a sin, such a crime is reported, the first concern is for the victim and the victim's family.
Cardinal Schönborn has said in the past, no more cover-ups. The age of cover-ups is over. Is he powerful enough, Pope Francis, to make sure the Curia, everywhere, the hierarchy, abides by that?
Well, I think, I don't know if it's a question, is he powerful enough? I think it's a question, is he brave enough to call it out? Yeah, I think if you look at what he has done in Buenos Aires with his own priests, it is clear. I'm sure you've read the stories about him excoriating priests who refused to baptize children who were born out of wedlock, calling them the new Pharisees, a new class of hypocrites who forgot that the Lord ate with prostitutes and sought out sinners. So I think he's brave enough and direct enough to do this. So I think, yes.
Father McShane, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We will keep watching. It's a fascinating moment. And after a break, the new pope may pray for the whole world, but he roots for his own local soccer team. A religious experience of a different order when we come back.